middle of a conversation, see where it goes. So, I was going to say that's what's poisonous about the collectivist idea is that it's all about redistributing other people's income. It's the politics of envy, and it's not aspirational. It's not. You said you come from pretty meager means. I do too. So when someone says to me, you've got white privilege, it's like I have worked for every single dollar I ever had. I had in New South Wales, at least it was back then, you had to be 14 years and 9 months before you could go get a part-time job. The day I turned 14 years and 9 months, I went down to the local bakery and I got a job. And I held that job all the way through until I finished university, working in a fucking industrial-sized bakery. All these hot temperatures and packing buns and breads onto crates and pushing the crates outside. Since I was 14 years and 9 months old, I've worked all my life like that. And the idea that I got something handed to me is just ridiculous.
Well, you can tell that you didn't get something handed to you because you can compare and contrast your experience to all the people you probably knew who didn't make the same choices as you. I know for me, like I did the same thing at 14 and 9 months. I went and started working at crazy prices, and I think I worked a 40-hour week and got $200 because I was working for $5 an hour. But then I did that for a couple of weeks and bought myself a bass guitar, and then I could go out and do $50 gigs. I could go and leave home at 5 in the afternoon and get home 2 in the morning for $50 cash, But the thing is, by the time I got to music university, I knew how to do a gig.
Yeah.
And I knew how to set up a PA. And even all the way through university, I've always worked. And even as I've gone into the more professional level of music, I can see all the people around me who go, I don't like that gig. I don't like playing that type of money. I don't like playing that type of music. And I've gone, well, I don't either, but I can still indulge myself while I like it at home. But that gig's going to pay really well. So I'm going to piece together a decent weekly income and have a life, but
exactly. Yep.
There's no magic formula, you just make different choices.
It's often strange that the sort of the cultural Marxists, the ones that want to impose collectivism and redistribute people's incomes, are often born actually with a little bit of privilege, middle class, and they actually have disdain for the lower classes. They can't even imagine doing some menial job. And they think that just throwing them, we have to raise the minimum wage. I mean, look at this whack job now that's in charge of the CFMEU, that Sally, what's her face? Did you seen her? New Labour, she wants minimum wages to rise something like some ridiculous amount, $7, I forget how many dollars a week, but it's like these people have just no economic sense whatsoever. I mean, these penalty rates that are supposed to go through, that was recommended by an independent commission, and the Liberal Party is so useless at trying to force anything through. But I mean, yes, there shouldn't be penalty rates. Sundays is just another day of the week. Fuck off with your penalty rates. And if you cut people's penalty rates, you will allow small businesses that can't currently open to open. Then you'll be able to work more hours. Now, it's a tough sell because you're saying, look, I'm going to cut your wages, but this is how tone deaf the government is. Why didn't they just listen to what Cory Bernardi was saying? And Cory Bernardi said, let's freeze wages for 3 years for parliamentarians. So you come out and you say, yes, we're cutting rates. By the way, out of 150 accords, they're cutting like 6. And you've got Bill Shorten running around saying, look out, they're coming after your penalty rates, nurses and doctors. No, they're not. They're not coming after the hospitality industry, the nursing industry. They're coming after the guy
that got on stage, not even affected by it.
That's right. Yeah, just rolling out people that aren't even affected by it. I mean, all the people, like all these thousands of workers that work at Coles and Woolies and that, not affected because they're already under different awards anyway. It's going to affect something like 7% of those workers, something like that. Really ridiculously small number. And you can't sell that. You can't get the Business Council to come out and say this makes economic sense. It's going to be better for business. And how about after all the fucking stupid scandals that parliamentarians have been through, how about say, you know what, we're going to freeze wages to the next election. How about that? We're going to suffer through with you. Dumb. Just dumb. Incompetent government.
But who's watching the watchers? Do you think these, rock stars in their own minds are in it for anyone other than themselves? Like if you have the power to set your own wage, why would you freeze your own wage? I mean, if you're evil.
Yeah, I think there are some principled people in Parliament. They're just few and far between. Like you've got.
I agree.
I think Cory Bernardi's principled. I think David Leonhelm is a principled guy.
Oh yeah, completely. I'd love to see those guys get in there. And even Pauline Hanson. I don't think she doesn't strike me as an overly intelligent woman, but if it takes her to rival up to get people in support of. Just to break them out of this equality myth that you can just import a whole bunch of people from the Middle East and they're just going to be just like us.
Yeah.
If it takes Pauline Hanson to get people to understand that people with different cultures have different values and that's okay for us to judge values, then, throw her in there too as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, she's a bit different. She's a bit different. There I go again. I've got an echo. Don't know why that's happening. It seems it's gone again. It's all right. Yeah, I mean, to me, she's a protest vote. She's a protest vote, but look,
she is,
but if the Liberal Party is going to vacate the playing field when it comes to values arguments, then people are going to vote for someone like Pauline Hanson. Just that's what's going to happen. I mean, if you say that open borders and we accept everybody, well, you are going to create a movement on the other side that says we accept nobody. That's just going to happen. If you say things like Islam has nothing to do with terrorism, you will create a movement on the other side that says Islam has everything to do with terrorism. Because if you're going to deny reality, it'll get pushed out the other side, and up comes Hanson, up comes Trump. I mean, this is why. How tone deaf is Malcolm Turnbull? I mean, you saw the Trump phenomenon. Then through the Australian election, he says Pauline Hanson has no place in Australian politics. And how stupid does he look now?
But I remember seeing Tony Abbott on TV, and the reporter said, "Here's a clip of you saying the complete opposite of what you're saying now." 3 months ago. What do you have to say about this? And I think he had this big goofy smile, and he smirked, and he, obfuscated and said, "Well, the Australian people will judge me, but I didn't really contradict myself because magic words and blah, blah, blah and mumble." But the big smile, I think it dawned on me, was like the big smile and smirk on his face is because he just doesn't give a fuck. He's like, yeah, that's right. I said whatever I had to say. And I look at it now with Malcolm Turnbull. Does he even think Pauline Hanson's got no place in Australian politics? Probably not. Probably he understands it quite well. But he's like, yeah, but I've got enough people, enough of you plebs are going to buy what I say and take it seriously as if I believe it.
Oh, I think he actually didn't think. He didn't see the Hanson effect coming. He didn't see it coming. He should have. He should have seen it coming.
Not though.
Well, exactly.
How can you not?
Exactly.
So I don't know. I mean, maybe it's because I daily, get on YouTube and I go, oh, look at that terror attack in Europe, and all the YouTubers and social media people are like, oh, look at all these attacks. But I guess I have a hard time understanding that if you don't go to these channels, you probably hear about one terror attack every 6 months, and then you go, what's the big deal?
But I mean, Turnbull gets security briefings every single day. He'd know about more terrorist attacks than you and I. I think so how can we not? It's a political calculation, and someone like Turnbull just does not have his finger on the pulse of the average Australian. I mean, why do you think someone like Mark Latham gets so much support? Because he lives out in Western Sydney. He talks to everyday people, and he knows the feeling in the community. That's why he's so. But before we go any further, because we've been talking for about 9 minutes, and the people who are going to listen to this will probably say, "Who the fuck are these? Who's he talking to?" So why don't you tell us who you are and your channel and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, cool. Hey guys, my name's Rob. I'm part of a channel also on YouTube based here in Australia, along with Independent Man. We're called The Rational Rise. So we're hooking up with other Australian YouTubers, definitely along the sort of the libertarian anti-SJW, trying to bring some semblance of sanity to the world kind of viewpoint. So yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, good luck with that. Sanity to the world.
I know. We'll see.
Yeah.
Actually, I have to say, probably my real goal is just to weed out the people who are semi-sane. I'll take semi-sane.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe we can all migrate to
Give
one
it 10 years,
state.
man. Maybe we'll just start a big commune somewhere and,
Yeah, that sounds.
defend ourselves against the zombie apocalypse.
Have to call it something else other than a commune. That sounds too collectivist for
Yeah.
my. So yeah,
Thunderdome.
let's talk about, and I'll put all the links to your channel and everything in the description.
Cool.
But let's talk about what happened. You had a bit of drama on your channel. Do you want to recap that event from the start?
Right, yeah, that was a bit tough. Obviously, we didn't come into this doing the anonymous thing. Like right from the get-go, we just put our faces out there, and people like as I said earlier, I'm a professional musician, and James, who's also on the channel, is also a professional musician. So a lot of our colleagues in the music industry would really start getting wind of what we'd say. They ask you things. Oh, you guys know Trump. Like, why would people vote for Trump when you're on a set break at a gig, sort of thing? And you have to explain to a whole band of indignant lefties that sometimes people want to keep their own money, and just watch them cross their eyes in amazement at this concept. So we decided to do an Australia Day special. And we had on Life, Love and Anarchy from Melbourne, and also True Deal Tom from Sydney. And obviously, I think the lefties in Melbourne were rioting in support of changing the date.
Oh, yeah.
So at the time, that's kind of what fueled my perception of it is, these anti-FAR people that are just coming out, at the drop of a hat these days, it seems. We were having riots, against the sort of the oppression of Aboriginal people, and change the date. And if you don't change the date, you're oppressing them. And if you think anything different from the standard social justice warrior thinking, then you are an oppressive white supremacist, blah, blah, blah. I mean, these people are just insane.
Yeah.
So I guess we did want to come from the angle of talking about Aboriginals, providing some pushback against the standard leftism. True Deal Tom, who was on the show with us, happened to mention the evidence anyway, that there is evidence and studies for that there are differences in IQ, the average IQ, mean top of the bell curve IQs of different racial groups, and that because Aborigines, have evolved in a different environment to Europeans, that they have different kind of propensities, and IQ is one of them. He made the mistake of saying, as the actual terminology in the book he'd read was that they have a retardation. And we all kind of went, oh, because, it doesn't mean you're a bad person or anything.
But he meant it in the clinical sense, did he? Because retard actually used to be a clinical term that related.
Yeah, and he'd read the clinical language and said, well, they have a mental retardation by comparison to what you might need to keep up with sort of modern Western society or whatever. But it's just that word is not going to play very well on people's sensitivities. And the other thing that sort of happened is that I happened to say, I know some Aboriginal people, and I know one guy, and he's freaking awesome. He has the same job as me. He's great, really top guy. And saying that, they can also succeed. So can we try and break down this collectivist kind of thing and just seeing people as groups and starting to treat them as individuals, which is what we always ever, wanted to do anyway.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, because, we are in music and there are lefties in music big time. And I think a lot of them saw an opportunity to really take us to town and obviously put these clips together, me talking about, someone I knew who I have a huge, huge respect for. And he actually, we've hung out since that article, and we're great. He's a top guy and he's an amazing musician. So I can't sing his praises as a person and professional enough. But unfortunately, my reference to him was clipped very close to the word retardation, as True Deal Tom used. And so basically on a whiff, people thought, these guys have just gone full Nazi against this guy who's actually a really top guy. And Yeah, it went really full on. I mean, we just reached straight out to him, and he came and hang out at my house, and we had a great time. And he he sort of sat down and said, "What is libertarianism?" We say, "Well, look, you understand that people respond to incentives, and so what worries us a lot with Aboriginals is the way people are so intent on getting them hooked up to government dependence, because moving through time, it's very hard for people to break out of that culture." And he's like, "Well, yeah, I completely agree." And
Yeah.
I'm like, "Yeah, great, cool, that's awesome, man. Like, you get it and we get it, and it was all fine." But there was a bit of fueling resentment underneath that. Like, I think one of the popular sort of themes is, "Oh, we need a union and we all need to set a minimum wage of some ridiculous money." And then you even just say to people, "Sorry, dude, like, spend an hour on YouTube learning basic economics and it all makes sense. Like, trust me, you can let go of the resentment, get back to making some music and working hard." And as I mentioned before, I've come from an extremely low income to a higher income and being able to employ other people. So I've always come at this thing of trying to say, look, I've started out way worse than you, and now I'm hiring you, and I'm telling you how it's done. You know, I want to help you because I want you to be more productive, and I kind of have this feeling that if musicians offer more value anyway, it's going to be this rising tide, and the, you know, like, more people are going to see the value in musicians, and the industry is going to do well, and there's going to be that competition. I'm not scared of competition. I'm not scared of being out competed. I'll compete back, and it's going to be awesome. So I try and help people, but a lot of people, when they're emotionally invested in an idea and you tell them, "I'm sorry, it all makes perfect sense. It's just actually the problem is the way you're thinking about it," then they get kind of aggro. And, you know, so it's just this boiling point of all these things coming together. And, yeah, it was pretty vicious. Like, I think we got criticized a little bit. Like, we definitely backtracked a lot, but if we took down sort of the videos and we've all moved on and things like that. But, I mean, it got to the point where people in our local area were talking about beating us up. And, you know, I got let go of a job. I got fired from a job, like a semi-job, like a consulting job, where people just went, "Yeah, like, it's nothing formal, no formal employment, but yeah, you're going to have to move on," kind of thing. And I think that is a huge positive now, because if I could have been let go so easily, I'm glad it happened now rather than later. But as I said, like, I'm quite ambitious and we're all very hardworking, so we're just going to, you know, I've always been in that position of being an employer anyway, and so I'm just going to keep doing what I do, and I've got plenty of work on it. It's all fine. But, you know, yeah, there is a real viciousness that came out, and, you know, a lot of people sort of saying to us, "Oh, I don't really agree with what you originally said, and you didn't say it in a very good way." And I'm like, bingo, we didn't, and we're very sorry about that. So thanks for recognizing that. However, what happened to you guys after the fact, that was completely uncalled for, and that was next level.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it
was definitely an interesting time.
The point of conversation is that, you know, we talk and we have a dialogue, and, you know, we will not. Yeah, I've got feedback again in this fucking thing. You know, you have a dialogue, and you make mistakes. You don't speak perfectly, and that's the point of dialogue. And you go back and forth. But of course, today, the moment you say something that's not politically correct or in the social justice zeitgeist, well, you are a monster. You are literally Hitler, and we must punish you.
Yes.
You must be punished.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, the most vicious people were not directly offended.
Yeah.
They just saw a crack in the narrative. And, you know, this is the thing, like, when you get real dyed-in-the-wool leftists, I truly believe that they have no principles. They are simply biological resource gathering beings. And they're just like, I will say and do and use whatever ideology advances my needs in the moment.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And when you are a principled person and you start making logical arguments or encouraging people to see things from other perspectives, and even though, like a big incentive for me why I wanted to do that is because I just think there's so much resentment, you know, and seeing things in another way, people can let go of a bit of resentment and actually, you know, ironically, maybe move on and reconcile and just get on with the program together in the future. But people sense that you're threatening the gravy train and they come out swinging.
Yeah, well, the gravy train these days it's a really, I haven't seen anything like it in my lifetime. Not that I'm that old, but
Yeah.
it's just I've never seen such a. I think it's, how would I put it? I mean, it's a really disgusting type of grievance culture where I feel aggrieved. I have no response. I will take no responsibility for my own feelings, and I have to get some type of authority figure to punish you for whatever transgression, however minor. It doesn't matter. That is the gravy train. I mean, that's what drives the Human Rights Commission. It just came out last week how much money people have had to fork over just to prevent court cases going to court because someone was offended. I mean, this is what I can't believe. I live in a country where at least half the population thinks you should be able to take someone to court because you were offended.
Yes. I mean, I'm absolutely disgusted hearing about those poor QUT students.
But even worse than that, and I did a video on this, but I left out a key component of this, which people, there must be some people overseas who listen to this, is that, you know, in law we have something which is quite commonly used in Western countries, which is the reasonable person test. But the 18C, the 18C is not subject to a reasonable person test, and that was part of the legislation to amend it that got whacked down recently. But
I saw that.
The burden of proof is on. So, I mean, 18C is a racial discrimination act. So, if an Aboriginal person is discriminated against, the test is if someone in that group would be offended by what you've said. Not a reasonable person test, not the average person on the street. It's a person in that group. So that just lowers the bar so far. So, I mean, and then you have people like Anne Ali, who's the only Muslim Australian MP, the other day come out and basically ask for a blasphemy law by adding religion to 18C. So 18C would be protected. Now, you know, it's all very well to make the argument, look, you play the ball, not the man. So if you criticise the religion and not the people. But, you know, if you're a devout Muslim, you can't criticise the religion without them taking it personally. And, of course, they can be... Well, if you said something like, look, if you think that Muhammad flew to heaven on a winged horse, like it says in the Quran, I think you're an idiot. Now, that's should be a perfectly acceptable thing to say. It's just like people who think that Jesus Christ multiplied fish and bread and walked on water. It's just as dumb, and you should be able to say so. But if she has her way, you wouldn't be able to say something like that.
I don't even really know what to say. Like, how are people, and especially considering I've grown up in a culture where Christians are weird. And, you know, after the God delusion came out and people are saying, like, you know, for a Christian person who's a good person and who owns a business and, you know, even in mind, if it's good to pay taxes, they pay taxes, they serve the community, and they're, you know, the wife is looking after her children and is a, you know, paragon of virtue in the community, all that sort of stuff. And then you turn around and you say, hey, guess what? Your most cherished belief that you're not just going to be worm food after you die. It's all bullshit. Like, is that not one of the most, I don't believe it. I'm not a religious person, but I can at least understand that if you are a religious person, that's got to be a tough blow. And so, but I've seen all these leftist assholes ever since, you know, I was in high school when 9/11 happened. And so basically my whole adult life, people have been saying, well, they've just got to put their big boy pants on and realize that the truth is the truth, their feelings are irrelevant, blah, 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 blah. But then again, you're getting these same people advocating that you can't even criticize that Muhammad married a fucking child. And that's racism.
Hey, that's culture.
Like,
culture
it's culture, yeah. I mean, it's just... It's absolutely fucking insane. Like, if I get worked, if I think up too much about it, I really do start thinking, you know, we are living in the zombie apocalypse and most of these people are just mental, you know, and they are just a few authoritative orders away from extreme shit. And it really scares me. Well, and it scares me for the children I want to have, you know?
Well, I mean, it wouldn't be so bad that, you know, people think extreme things because people do, you know, who cares what they think. But I mean, you have someone like Yasmin Abdel-Magid, who comes on TV
Yep.
and says Islam is the most feminist religion. And you know what? In the 7th century, Islam probably was the most feminist religion. But it's the 21st fucking century, and just because women had property rights in Islam in the 7th century, which made them progressive in the 7th century, doesn't make it progressive today. That's the point. Their religion hasn't evolved very much at all. And so to call, I mean, but this, the worst part about that is not that she would come on TV and say that, but she is employed by the ABC.
Yep.
She just was funded by the Australian government to fly around the Middle East to majority Muslim countries and get selfies. And apparently she was promoting, get this, she is promoting Australia as like this diverse, welcoming place to live. Now, why are you promoting Australia to them? Shouldn't they be promoting how diverse they are to us? So we'll open up, and say, shouldn't they be demonstrating to us, look, we're actually pretty diverse. Oh, yeah, what's your policy on Jews? Oh, no one with a Jewish passport can come in. Okay, that's diverse. Okay. But we're promoting our diversity? What? This is a fucking bizarro world. And, I don't know what it costs. I think it costs tens of thousands of dollars for that trip. And she's, employed by the ABC. And did you see the tweet? Get the tweet that she tweeted out when she got back to Brisbane Airport when she flew in? Did you see that?
I didn't see it. No. She
tweeted out, white as fuck. That was what she... Right? Now, this is racist. Now, if you were a public personality and you flew up to the Northern Territory and you went out back somewhere and you're in a Aboriginal community or a community with a lot of Aboriginals and you said black at you, that would be the end of your career. Yep. You would be fired. Would be. People would be coming after you with pitchforks. You would never get a job ever again.
Well, dude, that's my whole story. I did get fired for saying less than that. And I had people on Facebook saying, let's hold these guys down and lay into it. It's insane. Yeah. But I mean, like you said though, it's not that there's a crazy person. It's the way the whole society seems to be protecting and promoting these crazies.
Mm. It's a competition.
And actively suppressing intelligent people from debating them. I
think there's something that's gone on at the university level where you actually have people now on the left who've never heard an opposing argument because they didn't get it at university. No. They went through all university with lefty teachers. They actually never heard an opposing argument, and they don't actually know how to argue against an opposing argument. So what do? Shut up, no platform, protest, threaten violence because, well, they don't know how to argue. All they know is that they are morally right, that you are evil because that's what they've been told, and you must be shut down and stopped at any cost.
Well, exactly. And, that was a huge thing for me. Like I started listening to people like, obviously Stephen Molyneux's been a big influence on me. I have a lot of respect for him. I know a lot of people don't. And if you have a bad opinion of him, you're quite welcome to debate me on what your views on him are. But I think he's great. I understand him. I think
he's a mixed bag for me. I think he's good on some things, and I think he's got an ego the size of a fucking building, and and I think it gets in his way. He actually reamed out a caller recently, and he got pilloried online for it. But
yeah, he did. But my pushback against that is that it was occurring to me. Who was he talking to recently? He had someone on who interviews guests and stuff.
Yeah.
And it just hit me. I was like, this guy's talking about, he talks to Jordan Peterson and he can go head to head with a talk on psychology of Jordan Peterson. He gets an evolutionary biologist and bang. And then he talks to someone like Jared Taylor about this. And then he talks to Michael Shermer about skepticism. And then he talks to all these different people. And one thing that a lot of people say, they go, oh, wow, you're quite eloquent. Oh, that's actually a really good point. Like they don't expect such, content rich rebuttals or additives to the conversation because this is their area of expertise. And to be honest, like I've always been the sort of person, like back in university, people were like, oh, John Mayer, he's amazing, but he's so up himself. And I thought, well, if you were going to be tall, good-looking, rich, talented, famous, and you're not, if you can't be up yourself for that, what can you be up yourself for?
Yeah.
You know, I can let it slide because the guy is a fucking rock star. And so in the same way I go with Stefan, yeah, if he's interviewing somebody, he lets them talk more and he lets them interrupt him. But if you're a caller, he takes the floor. And I go, yeah, look, he does have that that arrogance in interviews, but I don't know, the guy is a very competent sort of dude. So I sort of go, well...
Oh, look, he's obviously very smart.
Yeah.
He's very well read. He knows how to make a good argument. And like I said, I used to watch him more regularly, but I like some of his stuff. But, you know, he's like everybody. He's got his biases. He's got his flaws. And
Yeah, he does.
I think I'm always a bit wary about sort of cults that sort of emerge around people, you know, and if someone... sort of, and especially online with these echo chambers that you get, where if someone criticises Stefan Molyneux, then all Stefan's, you know, legion of fans have to go over and criticise that guy, and then that guy's fans have to then criticise. You know, it's just this. It actually, I think it hinders actual conversation and debate, because not everything has to be a fight, not everything has to be a debate. I mean, it can just be a dialogue. I mean, that's what I like. People on my channel give me shit because I like Sam Harris, because the guy talks to people.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't.
Yeah.
He's very good in dialogue, but you know, Sam has his flaws. Very smart guy.
Yep. I mean, in the same way, like I feel like anything, like even right down to the real controversial things like defooing, I understand Stefan's arguments for it, and so I would say, well, people make different choices, but I can certainly see where he's coming from in that. And so I don't find a lot of these controversial things very controversial. It might not be your bag, but I definitely don't see it objectively more cultish than a lot of other things.
Well,
you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just very wary of cult of personalities, and I'm not saying he has a cult. I'm saying that his some of his fans act like cult members, and I think that's always a danger.
Yeah. I think because he runs the call-in shows and he has a lot of patience for people. I mean, I've called into him when I've emotionally been in quite a state, you know, and he will take the time and he'll work through emotions with you. And I think because he's got that kind of philosophy mixed with psychology thing, he wants to, you know, live on air on his show, get to the root of your psychology.
Oh, yeah. I think he's good at that.
But I think that like in the same way, like religions, they do get to the cornerstone of your psychology, and then they almost become a part of it, or a bit of a crutch.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when people go looking for answers when they're in a state of weakness, they will, you know, latch on to these things and kind of need them for a while before they individuate from that help, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's...
So I think if you're getting that real defensiveness about him, it's because he has sort of gone really deep with a lot of people, and they're going, oh, but this is the guy who's sort of helped me in a way. And
yeah, I actually have...
Yeah, I do understand what you mean.
I actually have, you know, I've listened to him quite a few times, get to people's sort of the roots of their problem. I think he's actually quite good at that. Sometimes, he had a guy on recently called Lord Monkton. It was about climate change. Now, Lord Monkton is probably one of the biggest frauds out there.
Is he?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
There's a whole entire web series devoted to how much of a fraud he is on YouTube by a guy called... by an Australian guy, actually, who's an independent journalist. Stefan just let him talk and talk and talk. Stefan didn't really question. But, yeah, he's a professional bullshit artist, Monkton. Now he might
really.
I think he peppers his talks with some facts here and there. But go and have a look at Potholer 54, and just have a look at how he has just pretty much debunked everything Monkton has said. So I don't know if
on climate change.
Yeah, all about climate change.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Potholer 54. Okay. Yeah, I'll check that out later.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah.
Because I was just taking it off value.
Well,
thinking,
that's the problem, and so I don't know if Stefan did his homework on that or not, or maybe he did or he didn't, because I mean Monkton's pretty high profile, and you know I understand why you want to have someone on like that, but you just got to be careful. I think so that
I agree.
Yeah.
I don't really want to get bogged down talking about Stefan because I do understand the criticism of him as well. Like I can see where people are coming from on that. But I guess I think that he's done a lot of great work in trying to give basic economic and basic philosophical information to people.
Yeah. Oh, I think he does.
For me, sorry.
No, I think he does good work. I mean, I don't think he's a net negative or anything. I think he's a net positive.
Yeah.
As I said, I'm just sort of wary about sort of cultish followings around people.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But I think for me, like back to that kids have never heard the argument before. I mean, obviously I moved from Stefan to like Ayn Rand and looked at some Aristotle and reading through some other philosophers and things like that and things on YouTube. And just the idea that, ethics or morals, would be universals, that was a mind-blowing thing for me. Or as you said too, when the Muslim girl from Brisbane goes to the Middle East and talks about our diversity, the idea that you would have morals should be reciprocated. They are reciprocal standards agreed upon by moral agents. So you don't have a responsibility to be more moral than someone else if they're not reciprocating that.
And
obviously the Randian thing, well, if you are tied down, hog-tied by your own morality, you're just going to lose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, she's an interesting case because you wonder what her version of promoting diversity is. Because I think people like her believe that Australia is a place where you can come and you don't have to integrate. You can just set up your own enclave and get on with sort of living this parallel life. Some people go as far as to say, parallel legal system when it comes to Sharia. And we know that's we know that's happening in Australia. We know it's happening with respect to marriages, multiple marriages. We know it's happening with female genital mutilation. We know the kind of brainwashing kids are getting, that they go to school and they won't shake the hand of a female teacher.
Yeah,
I mean,
and I saw something on Facebook today. It's saying we need the government to justify why they have excluded Islam into a Royal Commission into child abuse.
That's right.
And we know that children are being married off
Yep.
in this parallel ethical system.
Yep.
Yep. Once again, my mind just went, holy shit, like, how dumb can people be? Like, how corrupt and evil and stupid can this all get?
Yeah, because, I mean, I'm sure, I don't know if you know, if you saw last year, there was a question put to a Islamic school, what happens, how do you deal with it when you have a gay kid? And they said, we don't have gay kids. It's fucking hilarious, and I'm sure that's the typical answer you'd get from an imam or someone. They said, "Look, we're investigating child abuse, and we know there's certain procedures, things that happen. Can we? Oh, no, we don't have any of that." And then off they go.
Well, we did, but the building helped us get rid of him.
Yeah, it's just. It's stunning. Yeah, we're going to have a Royal Commission come out. I think 4 years of investigations and testimony, and nothing on Muslim child bride. Nothing at all. It's absolute travesty.
Is that not going to be the most important thing they should be doing? Like,
well, I mean, it's all kicked off because of the Catholic Church, and obviously there's some heinous shit that's gone on there for years, for decades. But I mean, as if the Muslim faith is as clean as a whistle on that kind of stuff.
As if it's any better.
Yeah.
Look, this thing about you can't judge Muslims, here's my argument about Muslims. And I think it's half decent. I haven't really put it out there yet, and I'd like to talk about it more. But I remember this preacher when I was younger on the radio. I just was flipping radio stations. I heard some guy talking who's Catholic or whatever, and he's saying, religion can be corrupt. Religion's corrupt, but you know what we can always do? We can always go back to our boy Jesus, because he's the heart of it all. Jesus is where you've got to go. When you're not sure, look to Jesus. And I'm like, well, that's true. He's saying that the institutions can become corrupted, but what always rings true is the story at the cornerstone of it. And so what I'm trying to say is that I think as a basic premise that I think is true is that the culture of any religion is going to be hugely dependent on the story of the prophet at the heart of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of people, they don't read the book cover to cover and they don't take it all seriously. But human beings learn from stories. That's just what we do. We really learn from stories. And so even if you haven't read the Bible cover to cover, you kind of know the story of Jesus. And that's where you're going to derive your values from. Mm. Now, interestingly enough, you look at the Jews, a lot of their stories center around, we were oppressed, we overcome it. Mm. And they have this kind of thing, well, we're in Egypt, or, a lot of different ways. They try to oppress us, try to kill us, and we overcome it. So that's kind of their religious, cultural story. Now, with Christianity, Jesus died for your sins. So if you look at the values in the story of Jesus, he is a martyr, and him dying, but dying for the moral high ground is preferable. Now, ironically, I think that is hugely what the Western world is doing these days, is martyring themselves because they think it makes them good people.
Yeah, well, you're right about that, because vicarious redemption, which is what, the idea that we can be redeemed, or people can be redeemed because someone else takes it upon that is one of the worst lessons in history, I think. The idea that you're not responsible, that you can put your sins onto somebody else. What a fucking pernicious and horrible idea. It just abdicates responsibility. And as you say, it seems...
But if you want to be like Jesus, you can take that punishment, and that makes you a good person. Like, Jesus is the most holy guy ever, and he sacrificed. So sacrifice is holy. Mm. And, I think we see that too when people's, the Christian Western world's view on other people, sacrifice is holy. But then you look at the story of Muhammad, and you get a whole different type of values there. And when you ask a Muslim about the values of Muhammad, they don't even shy away from it.
No.
The first thing I'd say, okay, you are a Muslim person. Yes, correct. Now, are you prepared to tell me that Muhammad was not a paragon of moral virtue, and that people, if you want to call yourself a Muslim, you should follow his teaching and his actions? Mm-hmm. To me, if you say no, you're not even a Muslim.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, in a sick way, I think it's really sad, and I feel sad about it. But in a way, if you want to claim the title of Muslim, you are claiming that the actions and values in the story of Muhammad are what you think people should do. And I don't agree with that.
Yeah, well.
So in a way, you can judge every Muslim because you have to fulfill certain criteria to call yourself a Muslim.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, the argument that they'll make is, it can be interpreted in different ways, and people, and there's different ways you can interpret it, and stupid Abdel Magid will tell you that Sharia is how you pray and all this kind of crap. But that is sort of the ultimate sort of get out of jail free card, is that, there's no central authority in Islam. It's up to the individual how they interpret it. But that's why I like going to the data. I mean, I put out a video about what Muslims believe in the Muslim majority world, and the dominant narrative of the left is that it's a tiny enclave of psychos like ISIS, and that's got nothing to do with Islam. It's a perverted form of Islam, and everybody else is fine. Well, that's not true, because, for example, in the majority Muslim world, something like 70% or 2/3 of Muslims want Sharia law in their countries, not other people's countries, but their own countries. Now, those percentages fall when they come to a place like Australia, but these are big percentages. And I think Sam Harris's description of concentric circles, which is at the core, at the centre, yes, you have the psycho-ISIS. But outside of that, you have the Salafis, the people who actively advocate the things that ISIS are doing, although they wouldn't do them themselves. And then you have another group of people outside of that who... well, they wouldn't advocate for the things that ISIS does, but, they'll be okay with the stoning to death for an adulterer. And then you just have these concentric circles of radical, what we would consider to be radical beliefs, and it is not a tiny minority. There is a large subsection of the Muslim community that believes fundamentally backward ancient ideas, and they need to be challenged.
Well, I mean, I had a presentation brewing where you just look at the basic Pew data, and Here's this lady saying Muslims a feminist religion, Islam is a feminist religion, but look at the percentage in every country that says that answers to the question, yes, a woman should always obey her husband. And even in the so-called moderate Asian Muslim countries, there's still a majority.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I mean, and in most of the African and basic, so Middle Eastern African countries, to that basic question, it's like 90%.
But then you move to a place like the UK. Now, in the UK, 52% of Muslims think that homosexuality should be illegal. 52% of UK Muslims believe that. When Charlie Hebdo massacres happened, 25% of UK Muslims said that they had some sympathy for the Charlie Hebdo attackers. Now, you know how the BBC reported that? Oh, isn't it wonderful that 75% of UK Muslims don't have any sympathy?
Yeah, that's true.
Oh,
and a
wow.
lot of, even in these statistics, they go, a majority of Muslims think the women are free to wear the headscarf or not. And then the majority is like 51%.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, well, that's still pretty much 1 in 2.
Isn't that refreshing?
That says, yes, I don't even have a right to take this thing off my head. It's just, it does my head in. But
then I heard that argument the other day about how Douglas Murray made that argument on BBC about how 52%, because he's gay, and he said 52% of Muslims think that my lifestyle should be illegal. And you know what the answer from the left was? Well, if you go back 50 years in the UK, it was illegal. And it's like, so what? These people have a problem with linear time. It's like, that was the 1960s. That's when it was still illegal to be gay. It's not 1960 now. It's 2017.
But how does that even relate? Like, what are they trying to say? Well, Muslims should be able to have their own cultural revolution in our neighborhoods, and even if it is 50 years behind.
Yeah, it's
and if you happen to be a victim of this, then sucks to be you. Like,
that's the moral relativist. That's the moral relativist, Oh, it's the same thing like, white people used to own slaves. Oh, yeah, wow. What? What is it now, 150 years ago in the United States since the end of slavery?
It was 3% of people in the United States?
Yeah.
It was 380,000 slaves or something?
And somehow white people today who were never part of a slavery, who never engaged in that type of thing, and black people who never suffered any of it, but they need to make reparations for it. I mean...
380,000 in America, 100 million or something into the Middle East over the entire history of slavery. Yet we need to let Middle Easters into our countries to pay reparations for slavery.
No one ever brings up the Ottoman Empire and their role in slavery. It's like, why is it that the West is the only one that has to pay back?
Well, maybe it's this Jesus thing we're talking about, that we're the only ones that have that central cultural story that sacrifice is moral.
I think it's also, though, that white people, Judeo-Christian European peoples are the ones that ended up on top, and everybody wants to knock the person that's on top. I think it's
of course,
politics of envy. I mean, look at the way white supremacist that phrase is thrown around today, like calling someone mate. White supremacy. Like, white supremacy when I grew up was associated with eugenics, Hitler, World War II, the Holocaust. That was white supremacy. But today, just if you're a white person if you say something like, I think the best person should get the job, it should be based on merit. Oh, that's a part of white supremacist capitalist patriarchy. What? Where do you get this shit from?
These days, if you want to keep your own money, you're a white supremacist racist.
It's stunning.
And it doesn't even matter if you're in a system that's going to give it to other white people. This is the funny thing. You don't even have to make the argument that it's non-white people that are on welfare. I don't even think that. I think I don't want my money taken and given to anyone. I'd prefer it to be asked for it or earned off me. But that's the funny thing. Is like, I'd like to keep my own money. I'd like to reduce taxes.
How about? I mean, I could even settle for the very poor getting something. But, we just passed a law the other day to prevent people who earn $500,000 from getting child support payment. We don't have middle class welfare in this country. We have upper class welfare. So we have people in this country, families. If you're a family out there and you bring in $300,000 a year, you get a childcare subsidy. Why the fuck am I paying for a family that pulls in $300,000 a year on a child support payment? I mean, that subsidy should be reserved for households that bring in less than $100,000. They should just slash that shit.
I tend to agree. However, when I saw that, I thought of this another way. I thought it was kind of interesting. The person who earns $250,000 to $300,000 a year is going to be paying a lot more tax than the person who pays 50. And so if you are taking away what they can take out, like they're going to be paying more than they're taking out. So it is still like a more of a tax on them, and it's more of a giving more wealth to the lower end because they're only going to be taking back a little bit of what they pay anyway.
Yeah, this is the great fallacy, though, looking at tax rates, because it's not tax rates you need to look at. It's effective tax rates, which is what people actually pay. It's the same with Donald Trump. Oh, Donald Trump is going to cut the tax rate in the United States from 35% to 15%. What's the fucking matter? Apple pays 6% tax. Who cares? It doesn't make any difference. And so people... The thing about the people who are on $250,000 is they generally have a lot more deductions going on. They might have an investment property that's geared, they have many more ways to write tax off. But I just don't think, whatever it is, I don't care if they're paying $50 grand more than someone on $100K. Why are you getting money from me to bring up the children that you decided to fucking have? At what point does it become your responsibility?
Well, I mean, to be honest, I am of the opinion that I'd say that to anyone of any economic strata, you know. And I mean, I think it'd be I had an idea for a cool kind of survey that I'd like to be able to pull off. I'd like to ask 100,000 people, in a hypothetical, if there was no government welfare, would you be happy to donate voluntarily 5 or 10% of your income to helping people who need it? And it'd be very interesting and telling to see who would. I mean, maybe I'll be proven wrong, but I tend to think that most people, if there was no other mechanism, would go, yeah. But then if they, so I have that sort of voluntary slant, and I would prefer that because, I mean, I don't get paid to do the channel, and it's because I want to help people with ideas and understanding economics. And as I said before, even in my own scene, I try to explain to people, dude, like I'm going to spend time helping you out of your resentment and telling you what I've done kind of thing because I earn more money than you. So I want to help you. But yeah, I do resent it. This kind of thing though, if you turn around, another thought I had is with a lot of these people, they're not even thankful. Like the fact that it's like they couldn't afford to understand that you are helping them out. Therefore, they kind of resent you for the fact that they need you as well. And it's this weird fucked up thing where, you think, okay, I may not be getting asked if you get my money, but couldn't you at least say thank you to society that's helping you out?
It's funny that they
and then it spurns off.
They rail against the rich, and the rich are the ones that pay the most tax. And if we didn't have rich people, you would get nothing. That's what poor people got to understand. If there were no rich people, if there were no large companies paying taxes, even with all their deductions, even with all the breaks they get, you would get nothing because there'd be no tax revenue. There'd be nothing. But it's never enough.
Exactly. And I mean, it's this weird thing. But once again, too, like, I would go, well, I'd be happy to sort of give percentages of my income to help people who need it. But that's a very far way away from what we have now, which is all sorts of, crazy arts degrees and arts funding and corporate handouts, like I said, upper class handouts and just all this crazy shit that goes on,
I'll tell you what I'd go for. I'd go for a flat tax, 20% across the board, everyone, doesn't matter how much you earn, no deductions and a tax-free threshold. Let's say your first 30 grand, no tax. After that, 20% across the board, doesn't matter how much you earn, because that's a huge incentive, that it's a huge incentive to earn more because you're not going to hit that 47 cents in the dollar bracket, the top one.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, that's the thing is like, okay, you earn 300 grand. Well, what are you keeping out of it? 160 or something?
Well, no, because the first 18 and a half you get taxed on none, and then the next 15 you get 20 cents in the dollar, and it goes up. So it's not, you don't apply that rate across the whole lot. But I mean, out of 300 grand,
did
you still
Google,
keep 200 and something.
I did Google tax on 100 grand, and the tax without any deductions on that was 25 grand.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
So I mean, even at 100 grand, you know, like that's. And another thought I had too with tax is that that's just your income tax. You know, like everything else is taxed as well. So income tax, yeah, you're right. At 300 grand, you go up to about a third. It's 108,000 in tax.
Yeah.
But that's just your income. That's not every other tax you pay as well.
Well, so. That's why, I mean, if you want to, I mean, one of the ways to do it is up the GST and bring down all the marginal rates. So you pay tax based on your consumption rather than what you earn. So, you know, people who spend more.
Well, at least that would incentivize savings, wouldn't it?
Yep. I mean, that's one way to do it, but I'd just like to see a flattened out tax regime. Get rid of a lot of the deductions. Let people keep more of what they earn. Same with companies. Get the company tax rate down. Again, a lot of them already have low tax rates, effective tax rates. But it would incentivize more investment. I mean, you're going to chase investment away, and we haven't even got to. You know, what we're doing here with our stupid fucking climate change policies and ruining our energy security here in this country and pushing everybody's energy bills for absolutely no gain whatsoever. I mean...
Yeah. But if you just take a bird's eye view of all this sort of stuff too, like you've got insane climate change thing, but not only just what the government's doing, you've got the cultural narrative that if you don't worship at the altar, you're a heretic, you know?
Yeah.
And then we combine that with, you know, women are an oppressed minority, they're not a minority, you know, and then this craziness about like Muslims and stuff. It's like, man, where are we even going?
Yeah,
it's truly scares me.
It's a divisive culture. It's based on identity groups, divide everybody up, and pit them against each other. There's no way you make a cohesive society that way. You have to talk about shared values. If you don't do that, you're fucked. You divide people up into groups. It's horrible, and I can't believe that the Labor Party has embraced this stuff. It's not the Labor Party as when I was a kid growing up with the Hawke Keating. They didn't embrace that bullshit. I mean, Keating did towards the end of his tenure. He started talking about, you know, sort of Aboriginal reconciliation and stuff, but it was not real identity politics. He didn't go for this shit. And I mean, Keating was one of the most offensive people there was. I mean, the way he used to attack other politicians. Yeah. It's hilarious. The Labor Party is, I don't know. But the problem is all the Labor Party has to do is stand still while the Liberal Party implodes, and we'll have a Labor Party next election. Leftist morons.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, well, I mean, the Liberal Party too. I mean, you've just, what are they supposed to be? Free market, but just not for them? Like... I don't even understand what the point of them is, you know. Like I think that they're just sort of seem to be there to give a nod.
They've vacated the playing field. They've vacated the playing field. I made this point because I've been out of Australia for 15 years. That Malcolm Turnbull is to the left of where Paul Keating used to be. I mean, Paul Keating and Bob Hawke were the government that deregulated. They privatised. They brought down tariffs. They knew that business was the driver of the economy. They floated the dollar. Yes, they brought in superannuation. Yes, they brought in Medicare, but they made the wage system more flexible. I mean, these guys did some really liberal, like truly liberal economic policies. On the other side of the world, you had Reagan with the neocons doing all the same things, Thatcher doing some of the same things in the UK, and we here had a left government doing a lot of the same stuff. These guys knew that business was part of the driver of the economy. And today's Labor Party, look at them. They think it's big government spending, identity politics, big grand, you know, renewable energy targets. Oh, they're completely lost. But that's where we're going. That's where we're going to the next election.
They're only a couple of steps away, I think, from just complete communism, you know. I mean, if you think about what the mentality behind the communist is, you know, like, I mean, no one calls himself a communist, but if you just understand the morality from each according to his ability to each according to his need, it is exactly what most people will parrot. Why? By what right do you have to take this money off this rich person? Well, because they have more and this person has less. Therefore, it is morally right to take and give to them to equalize, because, and that is the same thinking, but it's so prevalent these days.
Yeah.
I mean,
the way it just stuns me that they can't see the immorality of that. I mean, because that idea that you get to decide, you get to stick your hand in somebody else's pocket and decide what to do with that money because feelings. That's all it comes down to, because you think it's fair. I mean, that is the most immoral. Social justice is immoral because it's based on that assumption. Just read Hayek. It's based on it's completely authoritarian. It says, I know, or a select group of people know what's best, and I have the right to stick my hand in your fucking pocket and give it to whoever I like because feelings. That's what it comes down to.
Yep. And, we always say, we're free countries and stuff. To me, the fundamental freedom is the freedom to keep your own money. That's, I think, that is just one of the most fundamental things that you can call freedom, in my opinion, and that's just completely absent from any discussion of what freedom or morality is.
The fruits of your labour. Yeah, I mean, that's what's missing. That's what the Liberal Party has failed to prosecute, is that, we need a Gordon Gekko to walk out the front of the fucking, in front of Parliament with a cigar in his mouth and say, greed is good. We need that back. We need that late 80s Wall Street, rich people are lionized. Wealth is good. It's good to make money because it helps everybody. It puts it.
Yeah, well, I mean, if it's earned voluntarily, you can't take money without providing a higher reciprocal value to everyone else. So if you've got $3 million in your pocket, by definition, if it's all given to you voluntarily, you have provided more than $3 million value to everyone else. So it's fine. But how's that even? I don't even know if you can call it greed compared to this socialist, social justice warrior thing where they're like, well, it's this weird Thomas Sowell quote. I don't understand why it's greedy to keep what you earn, but it's not greedy to want to take the earnings of someone else. Like
it's
what a double standard. It's just insane.
Yeah. Anyway, mate,
you're a bit older than me. I was just going to say, like, did you see any of this coming? Do you know where?
No, I mean, I think I was talking to you before we went online. I was 15 when the Berlin Wall came down. I remember we talked about it at school, and this was sort of the Francis Fukuyama moment, the end of history. Good had prevailed over evil. There was a real distinction between the free world and the not free world back then. And the not free world was communism, and we were the good guys, and we had capitalism, and we prevailed, and we demonstrated that our system was superior to theirs, and that would prevail, and that was the way forward. And it was. And I mean, before we went online, in 1990, apparently 30% of the world was living below the poverty line. For the first time last year, that number fell below 10%. Did you hear that in the media? Did you hear anyone repeat that? Yeah. I mean, it's insane that we have. Here I am, not 30 years on from when I was 15, but almost. And we have a whole new generation of people who thinks collectivism is a good idea. It's fucking insane. I think all the communists and Marxists just went underground. They hid in the academy, in the universities, and now they've successfully brainwashed a generation of kids, and here they come.
Well, I'm really glad we could, connect on some of the problems and have a good bitch about it and, see where we're coming from. But I mean, in the future, I would like to, put the feelers out to everybody and, talk with yourself more and talk with other people. I think we need to have some sort of strategy. You need to have some idea of how to help what's going on, and if you can't help it, how to navigate what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I think the time, we're 10 years on from talking about this stuff on YouTube, or maybe 5 years, but I really think that, people are going to start looking around saying, well, what do we do? And I think we need to have that conversation a lot.
Yeah, I think we need to have modern conversations. Yeah, exactly.
I agree, but definitely. I think the time is to really strategize and go, we need to do what we can to help the situation. What can we do? And then how can we see it through,
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I think I might see you at the conference at the end of April. Yeah.
Great. All right. We'll see you
Do
then,
the big reveal. Come out of my shell.
Mm.
Show my ugly mug
Yeah.
to the camera. It should be good.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Righto, mate. Just hang on the line there, and we'll end it. Thanks for coming on.
Pleasure.